welcome listeners to another broadcast in our illustrious theme of guests here for Debruary 2021, our fourth annual video a day Debruary. Today's guest is Faust Ruggiero. He has been working in the mental health field for more than 40 years, establishing some cutting edge programs that help his clients enhance not only their personal lives, but their professional excellence. He's a published research author, a clinical trainer, and therapist, and worked in a wide variety of environments, including clinics for deaf children, prisons, nursing homes, substance abuse centers, and inpatient care facilities. So he's worked with everybody. His award-winning book, the Fix Yourself Handbook, is what we're going to be talking about today. It's based on a program he developed and fine-tuned called the Process Way of Life that has helped change the lives of more than 2,000 clients in his private practice, largely women. So I think he's a great expert to have here for February. So ladies, if you find that you have been struggling with fear and anxiety and anger and bitterness, you're not really sure what to do with all of those emotions, you're not sure how to move past that negativity, we have some ideas for you how you can let all that go and develop a more positive mindset. So Faust is here to provide you with some tips to help you understand and define who you are, how you can leave a toxic relationship and begin living a life that is brighter, happier, healthier, and far more productive. So thank you, Faust, for spending some time with us today.
Thanks so much for inviting me. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, I sure not nearly as much as me. Well, let's get started by give us a little overview of the work that you've been doing and how you came to write the Fix Yourself, the process way of life, how you developed that program, and then ultimately the book.
Yeah, thank you. The process way of life is a culmination of about 20 years of, actually 5 years of research and 20 years that I've been delivering the program. What I found was that as I was working with people, the processes that we need, that we really have inside us, that we don't use that enough, those are the ones that were guiding life. And things like honesty and trust and learning how to like yourself, all those kinds of things. And I boiled them down to 52 processes. And then when we wrote the book, we did 36 chapters. And we utilized those processes in the chapters, each one of them discussing a particular need that people have. Then we were able to provide all the information about how the process works. And then at the end of each chapter, I give people exactly what they need to do in order to make those changes, which is the way I think a book should be written and the way a good counseling program should be delivered.
That sounds really, really good. I was, reading through and it's very comprehensive. So in that, one of the things that really caught my eye was that you said that human beings are a product of nature and they're governed by natural rules. What are those rules and how do we know if we're out of order?
Yeah, it's really simple. We have spent so much time looking outside of ourselves to find things, whether it's people to fix us or situations or medicine or whatever it may be. Basically, a human being is guided by four attributes, I call them. They're intellectual, physical, emotional, and spiritual. That's what really guides every human being. And when those attributes get out of balance, then we start to feel stress and we feel depression and we feel anger. So what I teach people is how to keep your life in balance. That's really what I'm teaching. Intellectually, how to keep your mind clear and focused on the facts and being able to move forward with a plan. Emotionally, to learn how to put those emotions on the back burner just a bit, not to say that we don't deal with our emotions, but let's get them on the back burner enough so that we can let our minds move forward and look at the facts and help us put a plan together and not overreact to things. Physically, it's taking care of our bodies. It's not, eating the wrong things and not sleeping and putting accelerants in our bodies, things like that. Spiritually, that's just connectivity with what's inside you. And the more those four attributes work in balance, the better we feel. And if you think about any day in your life when you had a really good day, you were pretty well balanced. Intellectually, you weren't conflicted or or anxious. Emotionally, you weren't all over the place and reacting. Spiritually, it felt connected. Physically, it felt like, I'm having a nice, easy day. We try to get balance into our lives. And, people, places, and things pull us right out, and they will continue to try to do that. We just have to get stronger inside. That's the key.
I think one of the things rather that keeps coming up is that I don't know, when you look at society and how people perform and the behaviors that are going on, there is a lot of emotion, people that don't have any control or very little control over their emotions. There's like street violence against women. There's all, a guy will go crazy just because you don't want to give him your phone number. I mean, no concern for the fact that maybe you're married or you have, a boyfriend or a fiance or something. They just lose it. And with women, they tend to react emotionally to things instead of thinking about things logically. So if you could give just one idea for how people could get control of their emotions, what might that be?
The first order of business, and I started 30 years ago working with abused women, and I saw one characteristic that was common in all of them, and that's this willingness to give up who they are to make sure everyone else is okay. It's that people pleasing thing. I always tell people you've got to start from the point where you say, I'm a person, I'm worthy of all these kinds of things. I deserve this, I'm entitled to it. But just the way I was created to be an equal person on this planet. And I have to start behaving that way. I have to start thinking that way first. And there's been centuries of conditioning that have women in a
Right.
very different position. And as I talk in my own relationship, my own marriage, and we always say that if my wife were going to treat me like I'm the superior one, then I'm losing half of her, so to speak. So I'm not even getting what I want. It's just being able to start. That the starting place is that I have all these things. I should be able to move forward with the understanding that I'm as good as anyone else on the planet. If it doesn't start from there, it's hard to move forward.
Yes, a lot of women really seem to struggle with that because of, like you said, the centuries of conditioning with putting boundaries in place and saying no. They just struggle with that over and over and over again.
You know what? The reason I think women struggle with that is because everyone tells women, set your boundaries. They even help them define what the boundaries are. So you set them, you define them, but they don't teach the third step. That's what I do a lot of, which is how to defend boundaries.
Right.
And that's the key to boundaries. It's not about just, you can sit down for 10 minutes and get a piece of paper out and you can set your boundaries. I mean, that's easy. You can even define what you want to do with them. You can talk about what happens if people violate them. That's great. But now what happens when they do? That's when you got to be able to put your foot down. And there's fear on a number of levels. For some women, there is the fear, the physical fear. Someone may hurt me. But then there's that other thing where if you put your boundary down and you say no, the other person either plays the victim or says, well, gee, that's not fair. And then the women rethink the whole thing and they say,
Right.
well, yeah, well, so now they start looking for compromises. A boundary shouldn't have a compromise. It's set because either you something should happen or it should not. And it's got to be defended and it has to be defended all the time. And I tell the women that I counsel, you have to think you're worthy of that. And don't worry about if they get angry or hurt or whatever it is because you set your boundary. They'll get over it. They really will.
Well, my motto is either they'll get over it or die trying.
That's right. Exactly. And I tell the women that come to me, you set who you are. You say, this is the way it's going to be, and the line forms there. And if they don't like staying in line, they can go find another person to badger. That's
There you
all.
go. I like that. Well, let's talk about fear because fear seems to be, when I was growing up, this is way before the Tony Robbins, before anybody ever, I wonder if he was even born yet. But my dad used to tell us when we were little kids that there are two ways that people are motivated, either by the avoidance of fear or the pursuit of pleasure. He used to tell us that all the time. And as I've gotten older, I've noticed that fear seems to be the chief motivator for probably 90% of the population.
Yep.
So when you factor in fear into women's into your book, rather, you said that it is the most efficient killer of happiness. How can women start to deal with their fears, as you mentioned, but and it just goes, it just goes overboard. Women are really afraid of a lot of things.
You know, it's a great question, and it's the one I deal with a lot because women will come in and say, "Well, they'll present all these fears," and I say, we can go back to the conditioning, but what they don't tell us is that when a woman is in a situation over and over again, the brain gets used to that situation, and it becomes what people think is a comfort zone. It's I'm familiar with it, I know how to handle with it, and now you present me with something that's really good and I don't know how to live there. And I keep coming back because I'm afraid that I'm going to fail over there. I have no idea how to live with that. They fear also people's responses. They feel that they're not going to measure up. So what I always tell people is, how about if we define all these fears? That's what I do with all the women that come in. Let's define the fears in your life. And once we define them and get the irrational part out of it, because I don't care whether the fear is something like I have a fear of needles, which can be irrational, or I have something for a fear of dogs because a dog bit me. It doesn't matter. Once the fear is there, it will take on an irrational component because we will obsess on the fear. It's as simple as that. So I break them down and I get them rational first, and then we take it apart. And we say, let's see what all the constituent components of your particular fear, and we're gonna break it down, and we're gonna make you strong one step at a time through that fear, and it works. And women will go there. What I'm finding the biggest, and it's my big complaint about self-help and about all the people and the coaches and whoever that are telling people, they tell women all the things they should do, and they don't tell them how to do it.
Yeah.
That really begins to bother me. I think it's abusive in my mind, quite frankly. I think we should be able to say, here, this is what you have to do. We hear you should love yourself all the time. And I say, okay, how?
Right.
They don't tell us that we have to like ourselves. You have to create that environment where we like ourselves and we like our world, because we can't love ourselves if we don't do that. They don't tell us all that. And that it's a bit of a long road, and that's okay. I think we're worth it. Spend all the time we need, but they don't tell us how to do that. And I think we need to be able to tell women that let's define your fears. We're going to take them apart, and this is exactly what you need to do step by step. And the other part is, what I do is I say, and I have your back all the way through it. So don't worry about that. That's the key. And what I found, most women will go to other women to bring them through this. But then the proving ground, I had a woman another psychologist came and said, I didn't know how to realize it as a fact until I got back into a man's world, so to speak, and I was able to accomplish it there, because when I was in my safe place in the counseling office, I really wasn't challenged by anything. But when I had to go out and bring it back into that world where that guy was, or my family was, or the workplace where people were coming at me, and I had to use it all there.
Right.
That was difficult. So when I, as a man, said, no, you got this and you're doing it right, now go do this, it felt good to them. And we have to, and we also have to bring the men on board. We have to educate men to understand how a female's emotions work, how their minds work, and bring them on board and have them wanting to embrace those concepts, because we're training women and we're sending them out, and nobody out there has any idea what they're doing, and they're fighting against it.
Right.
And for some people, because they don't like it. Some men, because they find it terrifying. They find it insecure when a woman asserts herself. They just don't know what to do with it.
We get a lot of that, because
Oh,
and then they'll
yes,
hit
you
you with
do.
things like, you're too manly, and you emasculate me, and you're just a ball buster, and things like that, when really she's just standing up for herself. They say they hate feminism for the same reason. They don't want women to have rights or to assert their rights. They just want women to be over in the corner and be quiet and do as they're told.
And that's sad, because what we lose is half the population's intellect when we do that. we want to have a world full of options and different ways to go and information to arrive at new solutions and all those kinds of things. And then we say, okay, we're going to take half the minds and we're not going to use those.
Right.
We're hurting the whole society when we do something like that. It's not about gender. It's about, just as you and I are talking, we're plugging one mind into the other, so to speak. And then at the end of what we're doing, we hope that the whole was a whole lot greater than the parts. So, and that's very doable all the time if we just embrace the concept.
Well, let's switch gears and talk about baggage.
Mm-hmm.
Because I run into that a lot with people who they're carrying wounds, sometimes as far back as childhood, or, from their first boyfriend or early relationships, early marriages, lots of hurts and abandonment issues, and, not being given enough attention. They're seeking validation from outside themselves that they didn't get when they were younger. How can people address their baggage and what's holding them back from being this best self?
One of the reasons why we have a difficult time letting go of the past is because we haven't closed it. We haven't settled it. We haven't taken it out. Let's take it apart. Let's look at it. Let's put it back together in a fashion that can work. We tend to bury it. We think we can compartmentalize. We push it back there. But the problem is our life is a dynamic process. It's constantly moving forward. There's constantly energy. And our energy is designed to supply everything that we keep alive in our lives. So that thing we think we buried back there, we keep on giving it energy constantly. And what we have to do is stop giving that energy. That's the key. So the first thing we're going to do is get it out of our own heads, because if we don't, it's energy being supplied to the same thing over and over again. Let's get some new eyes on it. Let's get some new perspectives. Get that information out. We want to be able to deal with it with our minds and let go of embarrassment and humility. And we did something wrong and it made us feel terrible about ourselves. It was simply an event on our life's timeline. That's what it was. It's not who we are. It's one simple point in our lives. It doesn't have to define us. We just have to go back and tear it apart. That's all. And be willing to go there and get it all out. Then we can discard what doesn't have to apply anymore, and what does, we start working with it. And if people do that, they begin to let go of things because they realize that what was left isn't the event, because our minds have done the best to help us forget that. It's the emotion connected to it.
Right.
That is what we're moving forward, and that's what we're giving energy. And that emotion then attaches to what we're dealing with today. And it holds us back from moving forward. It's just a matter of closing it out. And it's usually, and the advice is specifically is get someone that you trust, spouse, family member, best friend, counselor, whatever. Get someone that you trust. Open the whole thing up. Don't leave anything out. Start weeding out what doesn't apply. Start talking about your feelings and what it's doing to you today. Let's get all that out. Let's put it in a perspective where it's stripped down of all the negative emotions. Let's move it forward, because some of those old past things people think you have to forget. Closing out doesn't only mean you forget it. It means you can take what you learned from that and move forward and turn it into positive energy if you're willing.
Do people have to forgive those people, or can they just do this work and move forward?
Two ways on that. And I have a chapter on forgiveness in the book. I always tell people, you got to forgive yourself first. Again, another one of those things where everyone says you got to forgive everyone to let it go and let go of the energy. But if you don't know how to forgive yourself first, it's just like loving yourself. If you can't love yourself, how are you going to love someone else? Well, if you don't forgive yourself for things, and sometimes the forgiving process is identifying and letting go of things. And sometimes you have to look at what you may have done wrong, or just sometimes it's just forgiving yourself or beating yourself up for all these years. But forgive yourself, then go back and look at the other people. By the time you've gotten all that negative energy from yourself out of you, forgiving them is so much easier because you're not dragging yourself down anymore.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about honesty. So you had some real words for us in your book on honesty. One thing that I notice is people have a real hard time being honest with themselves, but they insist on getting it from other people. I want them to be honest with me. And it's like in that movie. Remember where he says, the truth, you can't handle the truth.
You can't handle it, right? You know, honesty is my favorite of all the processes I deal with. It's the most difficult, but once you get to the point that you're dealing with it, it is the best friend you will ever have. And you're right. We all say, I want to be honest until someone tells us the honest truth. Then we're hurt, or we're being honest. But being honest with ourselves is where I start first. And I call it brutal honesty. And in the book, I liken it to peeling an onion. You know, you take the first layer off, it's just the paper, and we think, you know, that's honesty. And then, but what do we do with that honesty, that part of the onion? We discard it. Then we go deeper, and your eyes burn, and you can taste it, and your nose burns. And now you're getting down to the nitty gritty. Now you're starting to say, okay, if I'm being honest with myself, then I'm going to get a little uncomfortable here, but it's temporary. It's not going to be forever. You're going to, when you go inside yourself, and this is, again, what no one tells you, you're not just going to find the horrors, you're going to find the beauty of yourself in there. And once you get in there and be willing to say, you know what, I really don't care what I find. I'm going to like it. It's me. I'm going to love me. I'm going to go in. I'm going to find all these things about myself. I'm going to get honest with me. And then I can move forward. And, and that's about yourself. But, then when we do that, we can be honest about other people. We don't make excuses for them anymore like we did.
Right.
We don't say, well, when someone's hurting us, well, they're really a nice person. They're just having a bad day. I want to shake people when they say that.
Oh, he didn't mean it.
Yeah.
He didn't mean it. They're sorry.
Right. The roses came the next day, and then we know where the cycle's going next week.
Right.
When we get honest with ourselves, that also translates into boundary setting, and it translates into changing people pleasing and all those things that we do. The first step is always be honest with yourself. And so what if it hurts for a while? You're not going out and telling everybody what it is. You're just getting honest with yourself so you can rearrange the components of your life that don't work so well and embrace the ones that do. That's all it is. It's actually
in your book, you mentioned something, you're talking about the comfort zone, and then you have this very catchy phrase. You call it the change monster.
Ooh, yes.
Now, please describe that.
We all say we want to grow and we want new things and we want to transition. And then we're given the opportunity and we go right back to that other thing that was holding us down. And first, it's another person, we realize that we're in this dysfunction and this toxic situation and we hate it, but it's the other person. Now the comfort zone comes and we stay in that because it doesn't challenge us. And we know how to live with it. And we actually think we're taking some good feelings from that. And then change is introduced. And it is terrifying. We have to leave that comfort zone. We have to go and apply ourselves to the situations that we have either no knowledge or very limited knowledge about. And we actually can go into better situations, just like the woman who has been dealing with this horrible guy for years, finally leaves him, gets this great guy who listens to her and does everything. And she has no idea how to live there because she doesn't feel worthy yet. And she goes right back to the other guy.
It drives me crazy.
Oh, yes. Well, see, the problem is with that is that the internal structures of the brain actually change. It's a habit formation is what we call it. The brain, actually, the internal structures begin to change a bit, and they actually learn the dysfunctional behavior so that when you move out into something else, it's such foreign space that becomes terrifying. And the woman has been told for how many years, well, you're no good. You can't make it without me. And we come to believe that. And what I tell people is the real thing I want people to understand is that learning, this is all a process of learning, and learning is repetition over time. That's really all it is. And if you've been told for years all these horrible things, you learn it, your mind adjusts to it. But that should tell you if that process occurred, we can do it the other way, and you will learn over time again. But the key is to break the cycle first. And when you go out, you're going to be afraid. You may be starting from scratch. You may have to give up some things. It's terrible to say, but people will stay in horrible marriages because the house is paid, there's extra money, they go on vacations, they can get the clothing they want or whatever it may be. It's a comfort zone.
Right.
And then you're going to leave that and say, well, geez, I can't go in the hot tub at night because we won't have one. And we have the country club, but we have the friend and the new car that we get every 2 or 3 years, and I won't have all that. And I say, yeah, but do you need it, or do you need your self-esteem and your dignity? You can replace all that, and if you become a capable person, you will earn it on your own, and it will be all yours. That's what you want. You want a life that you create, and I don't owe anybody. I don't have to stay with this person who says he's providing. I haven't met the woman yet that cannot provide for herself. I've met a lot of women that think they can't, but I have not met one yet who can't do what all the rest of us are doing. It's just a plan, and you go out and you execute it, and you stay with it, and it gets uncomfortable. And sometimes you want to just jump off. I don't want to do this anymore. And then you dig in again. And this the old story. The one that succeeds is the one that got up one more time that she got knocked down. It's just simple.
Absolutely. Well, Faust, before we close out, I would like to give you an opportunity to share maybe, 3 to 5 tips that viewers can take away on how they can show themselves some self-love starting today.
First one and I always tell people this one is understand that everything you need to move forward and be happy and healthy and productive is already inside you. Because it's like cleaning the garage. It's a great garage and you have everything you need, but you piled everything on top of it. Let's get all that junk out of there. That's the first thing. Second thing is stop looking for your happiness outside of you. You're not going to find it there. And if you do, it's a temporary fix. That's all it is. And you'll have to go and reestablish it all the time. Stop the quick fixes. Don't worry about what's trending. Those all have very short shelf life. Work for the long haul. Work every day. Be willing to do that. And then for women, I always say, know that you are strong. And if you are strong enough to stay in an abusive situation, do you understand how much energy is involved in that? Far more than is involved in doing it the healthy way. If you can do that, do you understand how strong you are? Move forward. You have the ability to do that. Last 2 things I say is don't do it by yourself. If you need counseling, you need help. Don't be ashamed to say, I need help. You're worthy of that. You should be able to do that. Lastly, I close all the time with keep your faith. If you're a spiritual person, you were put here. The Lord created all of us the same way. Keep your faith. If you work hard at it, you will make it. There's no reason why. Just don't quit on yourself.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Faust. Well, let everyone know where they can find out some more information about you and get some information about your book.
Will do. I have a website. It is my name, FaustRuggiero.com, or you can type in the Fix Yourself Handbook. It'll take you there. The website is dedicated completely to the book. You'll find chapter outlines in there. You'll find all the media things I've done. Anything you want to know about this book, you'll find there. There are links to buy it there. Also, you can get it from Amazon. You can get it from Barnes & Noble, the usual places. Also, you can contact me on the website if you have any questions, any concerns at all. Call me or contact me. I am very good at getting back to people.
Oh, this was so excellent. I want to thank you once again for spending some time with my viewers and educating them about how to get on this path to fix themselves. Very inspirational. I feel like I just want to go out, jump up, and do stuff.
There you go. I'm glad. It's been an absolute pleasure. And again, anyone needs me, please get in touch with me.
Okay, Faust, thank you very much. I'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.